I thought, I'm not coming to this. I should be at home, probably in bed, eating bonbons or something. And I went to this women's event, and Michelle was speaking. And just to be a little bit transparent, I had just sat in rooms full of attorneys and powerful men. And I felt, like I said, this is a woman only, but it's not. Men are excluded. I'm not a man hater, so y'all don't think that. But I had just gone through a traumatic thing, and I believe again that meeting Michelle was a godsend because she spoke straight to my heart and confidence, and she was an attorney, and she still is an attorney.
Oops. I just
Top 10 in Texas, I might add. Yes.
Whoop, whoop.
But so she started sharing, and she started sharing her heart, and just kind of, I needed to hear that right at that moment, right at that time. So talk about placing yourself in opportunity. So I think Michelle gives wisdom and guidance. Of course, she has fees, and it's hard to get in with her to get her legal services, but that's what she's done, is given you this book if you need some guidance, because there's a lot of things we can go into blindly, and just to have that wisdom to make our own choices and decisions. So I met her at a women's networking event, and I had continued to follow her, and she is just a fierce woman of purpose. I don't know how she does everything she does. She will be on one day she'll be in the jungle of Africa, the next day she's supporting her husband at a chef event, and then she's closing cases in the courthouse, and she's selling her essential oils, and she's inspiring women. I'm like, how? It's like 20 lives in one day. So she does so much, but let me give her a proper introduction. You will be inspired by our keynote speaker, Michelle May O'Neill. She has been described as a lethal combination of sweet and salty for her Southern charm and Texas wisdom. And her, day job. Michelle is one of the top 50 women lawyers in Texas and is renowned throughout Texas as hell on heels divorce litigator. She says a hell on heels lady embodies an attitude of toughness and an air of confidence without losing her femininity. How many of us want to not lose our femininity? Well, I am so excited and honored. Yes, please welcome Michelle O'Neill. Thank you, Michelle. One of the things, we had a couple of people that we were going to ask to speak social media. We are going to talk about social media things, but I asked a couple of people, and two of the ones that I asked, the first thing was, what's in it for me? And I called Benita, it was one of those kind of moments when you needed your safe circle, and I messaged Michelle, and as I told you how busy her schedule is, and she said, absolutely. And she didn't ask for anything for coming here, but I said, can I put books in all of these women's hands? And so I would just ask, we're going to pass out the books to you. If a couple of, you're pretty. Yes, and Alicia's eating. Who else is not? Okay, yeah, y'all will just pass them out. That way they have their faces. And so y'all will have her book. I ask that you tag. If you get some nuggets from the book, share. You will get nuggets. I know I've already heard. Share. Amazon review. Yes, how many of y'all will write her an Amazon review? So, but let's just encourage her. I'm so excited to have her. I know she's just going to pour life into us. So can we give a girl boss empowering welcome to Michelle May O'Neill.
Thank you all. So, I want to tell you about my mama. And my phone works. Okay, now we're ready. All right. So, I want to tell you about my mama. My mama was not an educated woman. Her name was Sandy May. She was not an educated woman, but she was very wise. And it was moving, sorry. She was really wise beyond her years, and she taught me so much. So whenever I started out to write a book, I'm actually writing a different book called Be the Blaze. And every time I would sit down to write, things about my mama would just keep coming back into my head. So my mama was born in 1943 in Troy, Texas, in a dirt floor poor house. You know what dirt floor poor is? And you know, she went along in life and ended up having me. I'm an only child. She always said whenever you get perfection the first time, you don't mess with it. And then she died in July of 2010. So whenever I was trying to write this other book, that really is intended to kind of be my message to women and women's empowerment, all these things about my mama kept coming in my head. And I would try really hard to push them out and focus on what I needed to talk about. And then here they'd come again, and all these memories would come. And I finally said, okay, Mama, I'm listening. I'm listening. I hear you. And I sat down and wrote Wisdom from Mama. And I think in hindsight that it was meant to be the first book that I wrote about not law. I have law books. I've written, this is my 7th book. But all the others have been about law. This is my first not law book. And I think it was intended to be my first one because so much of where I come from is because of Mama. So pretty much everything I learned growing up, I learned in the grocery store because we were not well off. We always struggled for money whenever I was growing up, and my mama didn't work she didn't work all the time whenever I was growing up. My daddy worked, and so we wouldn't have a lot of money. Well, whenever she would get bored and want to go somewhere, we didn't really have money to go to the movies or money to go spend and go places, so we'd go to the grocery store. And driving over here, I happen to think, you know, there are people outside of Texas that don't call it the grocery store. So I hope y'all know what I mean. We're all from Texas here. So we'd go up and down every aisle. She loved the grocery store. We'd go up and down every aisle of the grocery store and look at groceries, even though we'd just been there the day before. And there was this one time I was raised in Belton, Texas, and so there was y'all know what HEB is? We don't have it in the Dallas area, unfortunately. If anybody from HEB is out there listening, please bring us an HEB in Dallas. Amen. So we were at the HEB in Belton, Texas, and I was in junior high. So I've always been an introvert. That's one of the things I'm going to talk to y'all about today. I'm not an extrovert like Chaz is. I am an introvert by nature. My mama was an extrovert. So here we are at the HEB store when I was, in about 8th grade or so, and we're going up and down every aisle and looking at every grocery that we hadn't looked at the day before. And we get up to the cashier, and this was back in the days of writing checks. Some of y'all aren't old enough to remember back when we wrote checks at the grocery store, but this was back in that day. So we get to the cashier, and Mama gets out her checkbook, and she goes to write her check, and the little cashier, bless her heart, says, may I see your driver's license? And that was the first time they'd ever asked Mama to see her driver's license when she wrote a check. And when I tell you that I learned everything I know about my cross-examination skills from Mama, Mama was not a lawyer, but she could cross-examine, let me tell you. So poor little clerk, Mama went off on this poor little clerk, and I'm like standing there and like shrinking, and Mama is just going off. She says to the clerk, now, why is my check any less good today than it was yesterday when you didn't need my driver's license? And what about my driver's license is going to make my check any better? I mean, just question after question, pop, 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 to this poor little clerk, and you could see this poor little clerk just like horrified. She didn't know what to do. It wasn't her fault, but I mean, Mama was just off. And then she peppers this poor little clerk with all these questions. Then she says, now get Tom the manager over here. I want to see Tom the manager. Get Tom over here. So here comes poor Tom. And off she goes on him, same cross-examination. Tom, I want to know why my check needs a driver's license. And what is my driver's license going to do to make my check any better? And I am in here every day. And if my check isn't good, then you know I'm going to be back tomorrow. And you know you can ask me about it. And how do you know that my check isn't good? You know, you get the picture. And I'm shrinking, you know. And so finally, Mama wins for that day. And off we go with our basket of groceries out to the car. And I'm still horrified, and I'm just like so embarrassed, and in my youth. And Mama, all of a sudden, I'm thinking she's mad, right? And Mama all of a sudden leans down and gives me a little grin, and she winks, and she says, girl, don't be cattle. Because you know what happens with cattle? Any of y'all raised cattle or been around cattle? You know what happens with cattle? Cattle have FOMO. You know what FOMO is? Fear of missing out. So what happens is whenever the rancher wants to get the cows into the truck to go down to the hamburger factory where they're going to become, meat next to lettuce and tomatoes on the sesame seed bun. You know what the rancher does is he picks out one cow and he starts leading that one cow into the chute. And what happens is all the other cows follow along nose to tail, right along behind them, all the way down to the hamburger factory. And so for Mama, being cattle was like going along to get along. And that to Mama was one of the worst indictments that you could have as a person, to go along to get along. So when she leaned down and she grinned and she winked at me and she said, "Girl, don't be cattle," what she really meant was to stand out, was don't go along to get along. Be your own person and stand out and don't just kind of follow the cattle nose to tail all the way to the hamburger factory. So whenever we talk about women and women in business and women succeeding in whatever it is that you're doing in your life, one of the main keys that Mama imparted on me was don't be cattle. You know, there are, how many of you are women in business? Women entrepreneurs, yes, I thought so. So there's basically 6 flames to blaze your business, upcoming book. Finances, operations, planning, leadership, sales, and marketing. So there's 6 flames to blaze your business. Finances, operations, leadership, sales. Wait a minute, I missed one. I'm gonna start over. Finances, operations, leadership, planning, sales, and marketing. So today I'm not gonna talk about 4 of them. I'm gonna touch on 2 of them, and I'm gonna really focus on the last one. So we know finances, that's your money, making money. You gotta make money to be in business. Operations, that's your how do you do it physically. You know, do you have a computer? Do you have staff? Do you have employees? Do you have a location? Do you work out of your home? That's your physical operations. Leadership, obviously we have to be leaders in business. Chaz does a lot of leadership talking. Planning, if you don't know where you're going, how are you going to get there? But the 2 I want to focus on today with you are sales and marketing. I have been in partnership with my current law partner for 4 years. Actually, today is our 4-year anniversary. I've been a lawyer for 28 years, but I learned something from my partner. He's been a lawyer less time than I have, but I've learned from him. And one of the things I learned from him was the difference between sales and marketing. And it's an image that I just love and has always stuck with me. The difference between sales and marketing, or should I say marketing and sales. Marketing is where you're out there with your fishing pole and your bait, and you put your fish in the water and you're trying to find the fish. You're trying to get the fish to come eat the bait and take your hook, right? Sales is where you actually reel them in and cut them and clean them and cook them and eat them. So I'm not going to really spend a lot of time talking about sales today. That's a whole nother hour. But, you know, sales is the closing the deal, is the getting it in the door, right? I want to talk to you today about marketing and how to develop your fishermen out there, or your fisherwomen out there who are helping you bring in fish to help you fish for your business. And that's marketing. Today's message, if you watch Sesame Street, is brought to you by the letter C and the number 3. So we're going to talk about 3 C's of personal branding, and we're going to talk about the 3 C's of networking. So, brought to you today by the letter C and the number 3. So the 3 C's of personal branding. First one is be clear. Now, why do we need a personal brand? I want you to all know, whether you know what a personal brand is or whether you think you have one, you do. You already have a personal brand. Those of you who work in an office, one of you may be known as the funny one, or you may be known as the serious one, or you may be known as the one who always goes to lunch at 12 o'clock. You may be known as the one who always brings your lunch. You may be known as the one who's occasionally grumpy, right? It's not always positive. But we all have a personal brand. The question is, do you know what your personal brand is? And if you don't, then we're going to talk about how to figure that out. So the first C in personal branding is to be clear in your brand. Now, if you're not defining your brand for yourself, and if you're not controlling your own brand, then somebody else is controlling it for you. You're letting other people decide how to control your brand. How do you change that dynamic? How do you fix that? So I want you to think about, what are the adjectives that you want people to use to describe you when they're talking about your business? It could be you at church too, but we're here talking about business. So how do you want people? What are the adjectives that you want people to use to describe you? Serious, funny, smart, educated, knowledgeable, a go-getter. What are your adjectives? Write down 3 of your own adjectives that you want people to use to describe you. But we're not going to do this now, but sometime later, I want you, because this is very personal, I want you to find a friend. Now, it's got to be a friend in the area that you're in. So if you're wanting to talk about your adjectives in your business, you need to find a business friend. And it needs to be somebody you trust, not somebody who's going to pee on your leg and tell you it's raining. So find a trusted business friend and ask them. Don't give them any, don't tell them your list first, but ask them, what are the 3 adjectives that you use to describe me behind my back? What do you say about me behind my back? If you were going to tell somebody else about me and my business and me in my profession, what are the 3 words that you use to describe me when you tell other people about me? And that's a tough thing to do. So can I tell you, y'all know I'm a divorce lawyer. So whenever I did this experiment, because you can't get up here and talk about it if you haven't done it. And whenever I did this, one of my trusted friends, who is a very dear friend and a very trusted friend, and somebody who would be brutally honest with me, one of the words that they used to describe me started with a B and ended in an itch. Now, the thing about discovering your adjectives is, number 1, hearing what other people say about you behind your back, it's very informative. And you have to decide for yourself, are those adjectives useful to me? Are those adjectives actually saying something to me? And are those adjectives things that I want to continue in the future? So, although I would rather they not use the B word to describe me, in my day job as a divorce litigator, I'm not the kind of litigator that holds hands and sings kumbaya. I'm not the kind of divorce lawyer that's the, oh, honey, it's okay. I'm not the kind, sympathetic, warm and fuzzy divorce lawyer. So, although I'd rather them not use the B word, using the B word's not actually that bad of an adjective if you know what it is that I am working toward. Because those of you who have been through a divorce, you don't necessarily want the kind and cuddly divorce lawyer if you're in litigation. If you're trying to settle, that may be different. But if you're in litigation, if you're having to go to court and fight and talk to judges, you don't want the kind, cuddly divorce lawyer. You want the one that starts with a B. So I had to embrace the concept that although that might not be the best word, that might not be my preference of how to describe me, that wasn't actually that bad of a thing. And I had to embrace something that was slightly negative, but that was true. So whenever you're hearing those words from somebody else, you need to think, is this true and is this useful? If, however, you find that you don't want those words used about you, and the B word was not one, while it is useful and it is something that I have to embrace, and I do embrace it, I also introspectively figured that I need to show people also my softer side. Like, I need to show that more because I don't. People that know me at home, people that know me in my home life, in my not law area, they see that. But when I'm at work, when I'm in the courtroom, when I'm dealing with other lawyers and clients, they don't necessarily get to see that. So one of the things that I adjusted was that I started showing more of my softer side, so that people would see that and would see me as compassionate, kind, and caring, as well as the B word. So my lesson to you from that is listen to what your friend tells you about your adjectives. Listen to what they say. And then you have to be mindful and intentional and decide if those are things that are useful to you, or are there things that you need to adjust about how you project yourself to the world so that you can adjust how those people see you and portray you. So the first C, be clear about who you are. You have to be clear and intentional and mindful. The second C of personal branding is to be consistent. So whatever those adjectives are, whatever it is that you're putting out there, you need to be consistent in portraying that. As Chas told you, one of my brands is that I'm a hell on heels litigator. So in being consistent with who I am, I choose the color red. So do you think I'm consistent today? Yes. Yeah. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So she's hitting me a softball over here. We're going to get back to that. So be consistent in who you are, whatever that is. Be consistent in your presentation to the universe. Don't be different at home than you are at work, which was one of my problems. I was very different at work than I was at home. So you can be consistent across all of your platforms. Be consistent in your social media. Be consistent at church. Be consistent because you know what? There's customers and there's clients everywhere. As a divorce lawyer, any room I go in, I can tell you 50 to 60% of the people either have been or will be divorced. So there's customers and clients everywhere that you go. So be consistent in your personal brand, whatever that is. The third C of personal branding is to be constant. Be constant. What does that mean? That means that you can't just be your personal brand. You can't just portray your personal brand on Mondays. You have to be constant in your branding. If you're in network marketing, you have to be constant about portraying the things that make people draw to you and that make people want to buy what it is you're selling. Now, that doesn't mean to post 15 times a day about your Thrive Patch. Ouch! That means you got to post occasionally about your puppies, you got to post occasionally about your grandkids, you got to post about your church activities, about your social work, about your volunteering, because all of this is really about building a relationship. When you use the word networking, networking is just another word for relationship. Marketing is just another word for relationship, because people don't buy your product from you, they buy from you. And so you have to be clear, consistent, and constant in your portrayal of you, especially on social media, because that's where it's all at these days. But even in your person, you have to be those things and be consistent and constant about it, so that people know. You know the general rule of marketing is that it takes 7 touches for somebody to even remember what you do. And in the day and age of social media, in the day and age of everything right now, if you're not constant in putting that out there, somebody else is gonna be. One of my hobbies / side jobs is that I am a distributor for Young Living essential oils. I love essential oils. But, you know, if I'm not, and right now I'm focusing on other things, so I'm telling you something that I'm not doing, that is violating the rules, right? If I'm not posting about essential oils a couple of times a week, somebody else is gonna come along and post about them at a time whenever somebody needs them. And so I'm gonna lose that business. If you're not out there being constant with your message and with your brand, somebody else will be, and somebody will come along and take those opportunities from you. I love what Chas said about opportunities. They'll take those opportunities from you. So being constant is one of the ways of seizing those opportunities. So, okay, so let's talk about networking. One of the things that I find very difficult is to walk into a room of 30 or 35 beautiful women and to put myself out there. I am an introvert, and those people that see me in this kind of Environment don't know that. They don't believe me that I'm an introvert, but I am. I tend to be the wallflower. I tend to sit back and watch and observe. How many of you are introverts? How many of you are extroverts? I should have asked that question first, because extroverts are always like, woohoo, me! So I have had to learn, if you want any business, you gotta, as an introvert, you gotta learn how to put it out there. You gotta learn what to do when you walk in a room. So I'm gonna tell you my secrets. It's all about building the relationship. One of the things that I hate, I'm using the H word, I hate, is to walk into a room full of people in a networking event and have people shove business cards in my face. And we all do it, I do it, everybody does it, because that's what you do. If y'all haven't discovered the concept of a digital business card, that may be something we talk about another day or another time, because digital business cards changed the game for me. Because now I can get on my little digital business card, I can capture their cell phone number, I can text them my digital business card, which is basically just a link to a website. And then I have follow-up, easy follow-up, I have their cell phone number. But, you know, when you go to a networking event and people have business cards and they shove them in their face, you know what happens whenever people do that to me? I put them in my purse, and I don't clean out my purse for a good month or 2 or 3. And then when I go to clean out my purse, I'm like, where did I meet this person? Who is this, right? Because I fail in my follow-up when you shove a business card in my face. Now, if you send me a digital business card, that's different. Something's beeping over there. If you build a relationship, if you friend me on Facebook, like those are things that do things that stand out, that are not just a business card that's in the bottom of my purse. So everything is about building that relationship. Number 1 rule of going to a network meeting as a introvert. And extroverts, this can apply to you too, y'all just don't need it as much. Number 1 rule, be comfortable. Because if you're uncomfortable, everybody's gonna know that, and they're gonna be uncomfortable with you. So number 1 rule is to be comfortable. How do you get comfortable when you're going to a networking event? Get there early. I like to get there early, get the lay of the land, maybe meet somebody else who's there early. Now, I told some ladies the other day, I was giving this talk the other day, and one of the ladies shouted, tequila! I said, well, let's not drink too much of that, because you might be too comfortable. But, you know, if you're going to a networking meeting at a restaurant, then go early, sit at the bar, order club soda, because you don't want to be too comfortable, and get the lay of the land. Maybe do some research on the group is that you're going to. Meet a person or two in advance so you don't walk in the room not knowing anybody. Call the meeting organizers, ask them a few things about it in advance. But number 1 rule is to be comfortable. And us introverts kind of have trouble with that, and that's why we stand back on the wall as a wallflower. Number 2 rule, to be confident. To be confident. Now, sometimes you gotta fake it till you make it, right? Sometimes you have to pretend you're confident. Sometimes you have to imagine what a confident person looks like and pretend to act like them. And that's okay. But you have to portray confidence, because if you're uncomfortable, if you're lacking in confidence, then the person you're talking to is going to sense that. And they're not going to think you are confident in what it is you've got going on. So one of the ways to be confident is to know what your message is. What is your message? What is the reason you're going to this networking event? Have a plan. So you want to have a plan. You want to think in advance, like, what is the point of me going to this networking event? Is the point that I want to meet 2 people to schedule lunch with that we can have a mutually beneficial relationship to help each other? Is your plan is to meet 2 people? Is your plan to, to make 10 connections and friend them on Facebook? Is your plan just to kind of go see what it's all about, and then next time go and make some connections? Whatever that plan is, have the plan in place in your head before you walk in the door. And then, when you have that plan, know what you're doing about it. Plan what you are going to do to effectuate that plan. So this is where your elevator speech comes in. Whenever you're going into a room and you need to tell somebody what you do for a living, do we all know what a elevator speech is? I said elevator, right? So you have your 30 seconds. What do you do for a living? Whenever people ask me that at networking events, sometimes I'm a little crotchety and I say, well, I put us under what God joins together. And then they're always like, whoa, wait a minute. That takes them off guard, right? But you know what? They remember me. So how are you going to be memorable when you say your 30-second elevator speech, right? So have a plan for what it is that you're going to say. And that way whenever you walk in that room, that you know what you're there to achieve, you know your objective, and you know how you're going to go about achieving that objective. Maybe you search out, 2 really friendly looking women and you go up and introduce yourself to them. One of the plans that I have whenever I go into a room, and there's many plans you can have, right? There's many strategies of how to work a room. One of mine is sometimes that I want to work the room and then I want to go home and snuggle with my puppies on the couch. So I have what I call the pinball machine plan. So the pinball machine plan is where I walk in the room and I go bing, 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 and then bing, out the door. So what does that look like? The pinball machine plan for me is I start to the left when I walk in the room. And I see somebody that looks familiar or that looks friendly, and I walk up to them and I introduce myself and have about 2 to 3 minutes of conversation. Try to figure out if there's somebody that I'm going to connect with or if they're worth having more time with. And if they're not, then I see somebody at the next little conversation that I know, or hey, how are you? And then I bing over to the next group and I talk for a few minutes and evaluate, is there somebody here that can connect with me, that I can build a relationship with? And if there is, I'll spend a few more minutes, and if there's not, then I'll ping on to the next group, hey! And then I'll ping on to the next group, and then by that point, I've either accomplished my objective, I have collected, contact information for a handful of people that I can follow up with, and then I ping out the door and go home. So that way I don't get stuck talking to the one boring guy in the room that just wants to ask me on a date. I don't get stuck in the cornered by one person. I have a plan for how I'm going to effectuate my goal of meeting 2 or 3 people to build a relationship with. I have a plan for how to move from group to group to make that happen. And I have a plan for efficiently and effectively getting out the door and going home to my puppies and my introvert cocoon. So that's one of the plans. There's many strategies and many plans, but that's mine. The third C of networking, charisma. Be memorable, don't be cattle. So how do you be memorable? For us introverts, we tend to like to wear black or blue or beige. We tend to like to kind of blend in. So do the opposite of that. Get out of your comfort zone. Wear a bright color. Wear a great piece of jewelry that people will comment on. Wear bright lipstick. Put your hair up with a fun bow on it. I don't care what you do. I was giving this talk the other day to some ladies, and one of them is in the housekeeping business. And after my talk was over, she came up to me. She said, I know what I'm going to do the next time I go to a networking event. And I said, what? And I was all excited that she learned something from me. She said, I'm going to go in riding my broom. And I thought, you know what? That's going to be memorable. Good for her. That's great. Advertising her cleaning business by riding a broom. Very good. And she was an extrovert though, so she can do that all day long. Not something I can do, but But the point is to be memorable. If you're not somebody whose personality is so extroverted and woo off the top that you can be memorable on your own, then do things to help you be memorable. Do things with yourself to help you have that confidence and that courage and that little to go out there and be memorable. As I said, I would get back to this. So wearing red is one of my things, right? Wearing red matches my personal branding. It matches some of my law firm branding, which is very different. Personal and business are different brands. But wearing red matches those brands. Wearing my heels matches my Hell on Heels brand. And it is also a color that makes me stand out in the crowd and people see me. Another thing that I do to be memorable, I don't wear a name tag. I have a firm belief that you should work until you don't need a name tag. But even in a room like this where I don't know most of you, I still won't wear a name tag. And the reason for that is it forces people to come introduce themselves to me. They go, who is that? And why isn't she wearing a name tag? And how am I supposed to know her name? Well, they have to know my name by coming up and asking. It's just like Chaz said a minute ago. Somebody said, well, what's in the bag? She said, well, go ask. Right? So I don't wear a name tag because I just don't believe in them. I think we should, if you're going to a networking event and you're there to mix and mingle, then go mix and mingle and ask me my name. And that way it gives me an opportunity to be more memorable. I have a friend that some of y'all may know, Rakisha, if you were in DWE. But so my friend Rakisha, she's my book editor and book publisher. So she is a beautiful African American woman. And you know what she does when she goes to a networking event? She wears beautiful African American patterned dresses. And they are so beautiful and so brightly colored, and she does it intentionally. She embraces who she is in that moment. That is part of her personal brand, is who she is. And she walks in that room and everybody's eyes go straight to her. Everybody sees her. Everybody notices her. And you'll want to walk up and say, that is a beautiful dress. You want to walk up and say, what is the story behind the dress? So it makes her memorable in a room full of 200 women. Now, can we all be Rakisha? No, because she is the best Rakisha that there is in the universe. And you are the best you that there is in the universe. So you have to figure out, when you're going through your exercise of defining your adjectives and defining your personal brand, and being clear, consistent, and constant in your personal brand as to how you want to portray yourself, then you have to do that for yourself so you know what it is you're putting out there. And then whenever you go to those meetings, then you're clear and you can portray that in the meeting and you know what you're there to do. So, be clear. Wait a minute, I've already forgotten. I put down my notes. All right, so we have 6 C's, right? So the 3 C's, let's review the 3 C's of networking: to be comfortable, to be confident, and to be charismatic. So those are the 3 C's when you're going into a networking event. Be comfortable, be confident, be charismatic, even if you have to fake it till you make it. And why? Why is that? Because as Mama said, you don't want to be cattle. All right, so that's what I have for y'all today. I'm happy to answer questions, sign up, talk about anything else. Yes, ma'am.
Can we go back to that B word for a minute?
Yep.
Now, when they say that about you, do they really mean aggressive? Like, you know, if you're in like a male-dominated space and you exude the same qualities that they do, they use that word to a female, but not
Sure.
a man is something else.
Yeah, I mean, so I think you're kind of getting into some metaphysical here, but that's true. I mean, as women, often if you're assertive, aggressive also has negative tendencies, but
What's
metaphysical. Theoretical. Okay. Deep. How's that?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, you know, whenever we're in a male-dominated space, there tend to be adjectives that have negative connotations, and we don't, as women, have to embrace those negative connotations, right? But at the same time, I think we have to analyze them and understand where they're coming from. So yes, you're right. I exist in a very male-dominated space, and it's not just men, though. I mean, women are tough on women. I mean, that's why events like this, and that's why people like Chaz are so important, because we need to learn as women not to be that way to each other. We need to learn to build each other up. If y'all haven't read the book Lean In, I highly recommend it. But I think that is where that comes from, because I'm assertive, because I don't back down, because they can't overpower me, whether it's men or women. I mean, it's just, I don't back down. So yes, that's where the B word comes from. That is a summary of many qualities that I actually need to embrace, right? So being assertive is a good thing for a divorce litigator. Not backing down is a good thing. Fighting hard for my client is a good thing. And one of the things that I feel like in my own path and in my own analysis of like what is the thing that I bring to the universe that's different than anybody else, and that I believe is my strength. My strength that I can be strong for other people when they are weak, like in a divorce situation. That I can convey to people that I speak to women especially that I speak to, I can convey a strength that I have, in a fortitude, might be a better word, a fortitude that I have to other people, and encourage them that they too can have fortitude. And so fortitude, aggressiveness, those are all those kind of strong words. So that's where I came to when I analyzed those adjectives, and the B word being one of them. That's where I came to in analyzing what that meant in a way that I could take away as a positive. Do some people mean it as a negative? Of course. But, we can't worry about them. Like, all we get to do is worry about us. So, for me, it was analyzing it in a way that I could take away as a positive. And that's what I encourage you to do. Yes, ma'am?
Can we add to that? What is something you do in the career because you do have to be assertive and aggressive, and I'm the same way in my line of work, and I work with a lot of men, and I get the same thing, the B word. What do you do to kind of soften that, even though you cannot?
So, and like I told you, I mean, that's something that I've recently, in the last few years, I've been working on, because I didn't necessarily want to only be known as that bitchy lawyer, I embrace it with Hell on Heels. I embrace that part of it. But I also wanted to soften that. I wanted people to see. One time I had a guy come up to me. I just had a case against this lawyer guy. And we were at a networking event or something. And I probably had a glass of wine or two. And so I was being especially like charming and funny. And he's like, oh, you're not that bad. And I was like, I mean, again, like you have to figure out what to take away from it. Like not necessarily embrace his negativity, but what do you take away from that? And I was like, whoa, maybe I need to be this way more often. So what I found is a couple of things. One is to smile. So I believe that I call it being British, because the British, they can say stuff and it's like a total cut down, but they smile and they have this great accent and it sounds like a compliment. So I've learned that you can say something with a smile that you can't say with a frown. Yeah. So that's basically how I embraced it, was to smile. And when you smile more, like I found that I had resting bee face a lot of the time. Which, on a side note, like I went to one of those doctors and had these little things done so my eyebrows didn't come down over my eye. Well, I haven't done Botox yet, but they did it was these little strings that they put in my forehead and they pull it up. And it's less invasive than like a forehead lift, but lasts longer than Botox. And so they did that and they pulled my little eyebrows up, and then my resting bee face went away some because I wasn't scowling all the time. Now Botox may be next, but yeah, so I think facial expression and body expression, I think, is one way of dealing with that. You also can't take life too seriously. So, and probably in your line of work, and certainly in mine, sometimes guys can be a little gross, profane, rude, dirty, nasty, whatever, So you got to learn to not take life too seriously. If a guy tells a dirty joke in front of you, just like, ha, whatever. And don't take it home with you. Let them be where they are, and just don't, like you said a minute ago, like don't take it home with you. You get to choose what you take home with you. So, you also have to just not look at life too seriously and not get offended at stuff, and just smile, and just know that you get to go home to your puppies and your husband and your kids and your grandkids and your pool and your little haven, and they get to go home to their haven. And there's some woman in the world that's tired of their shit.
And
But
I need to call Michelle, man.
well, you know, there is that. Yeah. So questions?
That was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh yes, ma'am. Of course, I'll sign everybody's book.
Y'all give her a big girl boss. You're so extrovert and inspiring, but I asked Michelle, and it got me a little bit nervous because I am not afraid to prospect up and reach up to women that are powerful, that can rock some freaking high heels, that are more, in my mind, more educated, more power, and for someone to just say, sure, I'll come and love on you guys. It's just an amazing thing, and I'm just so thankful for you. We're going to take a quick potty break, and if we can get Michelle a chair right here. She'll sign as many as we can for about 10 minutes, and make sure you post and tag, and thank her. Joe, yeah, Amazon review, please, and let's real quick sign and go. Let's not ask her a 70-day litigation or divorce question.
Yeah, I can't answer the divorce question. The divorce question is going to get to the mom.
I said, I was looking for you there.
Well, you were right.
Benita.
I did very little, but so you're IT. So you're IT.
I'm everything. Anything that they tell me to do, I can do it because God equips me.
Sure, I can do that.
Yeah. Okay.
How do you do
Menu. Oh, it is touchscreen, so that's a plus. Here we go. Menu.
Before I leave, I need your number. I'll have your number when you go to the
When
website.
I go to the website and do my thing. Menu.
Is that camera on?
Yes. I'm trying to learn how to turn it off. Okay, stop.
Can we just close it?
This function is not available.